All right, you legends. We're at it again. Just got to cross John Cooper Road there. So we're gonna get some clips for you all. Gonna be a shorter day than we usually do, but it's a nice morning and it should be interesting.
On this ride, Paul and I left Northampton, rolled into the woodlands. We picked up Team Ahar, went out west on 1488. Really good action. Abby had put a route together that took us past Mount Magnolia there in Mostwin into Magnolia. We took 1774, got on 1486. Lots of rollers. We filmed all the way into Dobbins on Mount Mariah. And then we turned off the camera, rode with the group, stopped at Dacus with the group. Then we went up on Johnson Road, that's all off camera. Bailey Grove, 149 to Montgomery Pass, Taco Corner, we didn't stop there. Then we took Mill Route back on Raven Chapel southbound, and then got on Fish Creek towards the woodlands. Got back kind of early, so Paul and I took the long way around Branch Crossing and so forth, and just kind of rounded out the ride. I think you would love the clips we got for you. The FM 1488 headed westbound towards the city of Magnolia, Texas. There's a guy parked on the side here. They're a working crew, so we're taking the main lane. A bunch of cars, probably their cars. They're doing some work on the side of the road. But the theme of this ride is how to pace yourself with the group. It's early in the ride. You want to sit in. Even if you're feeling good, save it for the last hour. Your goal should be to last, to build your endurance at whatever effort you and your group's doing. No point in you going hard early and then ended up riding alone because you emptied the tank before the ride really began. The light was red. It has changed to green at, we're at Cimarron Boulevard coming up here. I go in here on the right a lot to do some work during the week. There are a lot of hills in there. It's a nice, quiet subdivision. I try to avoid busy roads when I train. I don't want to compete with cars, so I find routes that are quiet so I can focus on riding with no interruptions. You have to ride on some busy roads to get there, but the goal is most of your plans should be riding on as quiet a road as possible. It's just more fun that way anyway. I keep my cadence high on purpose. I'm not sure what Austin and I think that's James in front of Austin on the right. They're the only two over there. I'm staying in the line so I can save energy. This is how you pace yourself. And you see Austin is in a gear. Look at his cadence. I've seen him pedal faster than that. So I'm not sure why he's laboring a few minutes into the ride. At this point, my mind just told me, my mind drifted towards food. I reached for a gel. I'm not hungry necessarily, but if it crosses my mind, I go ahead and throw something in a tank. So that's for like hour 2 and 3. Because I always take something before I clip in. So I put my wrapper up. I usually discard it when we stop. Unless it's really yucky, you know, sometimes that gel doesn't open up properly, and I hate to get all that sticky stuff all over me. But whenever possible, carry your trash in your pocket. When you get to a point like at a gas station or a store, you can discard it there. I put some new cleats on these particular shoes but they were one of the first classic shoes I got. And the cleats were worn, so I switched them. And so I think this is like the second ride. So the left one is not quite where I like it. It's causing the tongue of the shoe to move. So periodically during the ride, you will see me move the tongue to where it feels comfortable. I mean, it feels pretty good, but it's not perfect. So even though I marked it, it still felt a little off. It's always the case. You're always fiddling with something. But it's important enough for me to where I like to dial everything into where I'm not thinking about it. There's no discomfort. So it's early in the ride. We're kind of, you know, still kind of warming up. Even though the pace, you know, it was like, what, 21, 22 miles an hour. You know, this is when you make sure you've got enough fluid in your system. If you want to eat something solid, it's a good time to take it. You don't want to eat solid when you're going very hard. You want to eat before you're hungry and drink before you're thirsty. And I'm sitting in zone 1 because of the draft, because of where I'm sitting. I am not, you will not see me sitting over there unless I'll be on Austin's wheel. But just looking at his body language, I'm not sure why he's there, because he ended up not finishing this ride with us. The third hour got too hard for him, so he waved us around him in the Paceline. So if he had saved maybe this little energy here, he probably could have finished the ride. I'm going to point out other things. This is Abby. Abby's the one who put the ride together. But I'm going to point out things that he does that actually I don't think he's aware of it. There are a lot of people that ride bikes that don't understand the sport. That's okay. Not everybody needs to be a student of the sport. But I point these things out because I don't want you to pick up bad habits from seeing this on our films. That's the reason I point them out. I am not, you know, some people have come to the channel. They're mostly visitors, guys, that just see the video. They don't want to leave a comment. They don't even watch the whole thing, but they want to leave a comment. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm calling it as I see it. And it doesn't sit well with 100% of the people. That's not why I do this. I don't do this to be popular. I do this to state the facts as I know it. So it's okay. I'm not bashing the person. I'm just pointing out that what you see this person doing, it's not the proper thing to do. So that if you decide to copy it, you'll know that you're not doing the proper thing. You know, as far as enhancing the group etiquette. That's why this playlist is called Group Cycling Etiquette. I want to point out the best possible way to do things so that regardless of who you ride with, you'll know what you're doing is right. And you're not going to listen to any comments from anyone else who may not know as much as you do because you came and got this knowledge. So that's what it's about. I'm not bashing anybody. People have been leaving comments. Some of them I'll reply to, you know, and then some of them I just ignore because it's clear they didn't watch the whole film. You can't read one chapter and then come to class. You read like a part of the chapter and come to class, start asking the teacher questions. You're not going to be popular. The teacher will know you did not consume the entire material, you know. So you got to invest the time. They'll come and watch the introduction of the video and they want to drop a question based on what they saw the headings say. And I can tell they didn't watch the film because what they're talking about was explained in here. So you got to invest time if you want knowledge. It's really that simple. No one's going to get the knowledge for you and just lay it in front of you. You want to be good at something, you got to put the time in. I'm wiping my hands because I've got ice in that bottle and the condensation is on there and I don't want my fingers to be slippery. So I just wipe my fingers on my short after handling the bottle. In a little while, we're going to hit a bumpy, maybe about 10 kilometers, we'll hit a bumpy piece of pavement where the bridges meet the road. And it will cause my bottle to move to the side. I make sure I put it back if it touches my leg after I sit. Because I always stand when we go over imperfections. And you should practice that too. Saves your wheels, it just makes sense. It lets the bike freely bounce over obstructions instead of carrying your body weight over them. So you notice that while I was chatting, Austin is now in the Paceline. The pace has picked up. I mean, we're doing about 23 miles an hour. But he's realized that I better get in the Paceline. I don't know why he was sitting out there, because he was not drafting the guy in front of him. They were far away from each other, so he expended and wasted a lot of energy down there. Don't do that. Everything you save is in the bank. It's just like money. You don't get well off. You don't get wealthy by spending money. So you have to have a budget. You have to have a plan so that you buy what you need and the rest you let go. Because marketing and commercials is about trying to get you to buy things you don't need. So you've got to make your own decisions. If you need something, you wouldn't need a commercial to tell you about it. You go seek it out. I don't know if you saw Austin scoot back a little bit right there. I see that a lot. If you're scooting back, I mean, it's not like he stood up or something. If you're scooting back, that means you don't like where you're sitting on the saddle. And what usually causes that is a saddle that's not level. And the reason why some riders will set that saddle below level is because it's too high. So it's uncomfortable. You shouldn't be sliding while you're pedaling on your saddle. What that means is gravity is moving you. And that means your saddle angle is off. And all that movement will cause chafing. That's why a lot of riders use chamois cream to compensate for a poor fit. I only use chamois cream when it's wet. I'm gonna ride in the wet. And even then, we use our mud guards to keep the water off our rear. And mud guards are unpopular around here. I think Paul and I are the only one that use them. Then everybody wants to sit on our wheel. And we avoid them. We don't ride with a group when it's wet because they spray and get you dirty. I guess it's not cool to have mud guards on your bike. So they'd much rather go around and get filthy and have all that cleanup to do after the ride. So at this point in the ride, I know what's coming. I know Mount Magnolia is coming. I'm really just sitting. You can see I'm still in zone 1. And everybody's different. Another rider might be 100 beats a minute or whatever. Everybody's genetically predisposed. You know, your body works differently. So you can't compare heart rates and say, oh, we're doing the same work. No, because at the same effort, another rider with the same level of fitness will probably have different heart rate readings. Some people have lower heart rate readings. Your heart rate doesn't need to be high for you to go fast. It's whatever your body does, and that's unique to you as far as the amount of load that it will take to get you into higher zones. And of course, as you get fitter, your resting heart rate decreases, so it takes even more effort to get you up there. I may do this ride and maybe hit 170 beats per minute. The next rider may only hit 150. As a whole, that's always been there. So everybody's different. That's why you have to find your own zones. And then you adjust them as your fitness changes. This is a nice little bump. keep my cadence up. Spinning is very difficult if your bike doesn't fit you, because your weight is not distributed properly. You're not going to enjoy spinning. I mean, spinning a high cadence. They had pointed that out, but it was kind of late, and I saw that it was a flat piece of metal, so I just looked for the smoothest parts of it to roll over it. I'm always looking around. I don't depend on signals from other riders. You should do the same. Always try to look around the rider in front of you. You don't need to be exactly behind a rider to benefit from the draft. Obviously, the faster you go, the closer you'd like to be. But in a large group, you need to be aware of what's happening, not just right in front of you, but just all around you, what's coming up. Don't worry about behind you. Focus on your front, the right, and left. Because I see a lot of riders in the group will be turning their heads to look at the rider behind, mostly inexperienced riders. It's the wheel in front of you that can bring you down. So you shouldn't be that overly concerned about the people behind you to be taking your view off the front to look back. I try to stay within a foot of most riders. The faster we go, the closer I get, the more experienced the rider I'm following is, meaning that they're smooth. I get closer. But a foot is a good benchmark. I spend most of the time on the hoods so I can see around them, see what's coming up and over and around. We're approaching what we call in this area Mount Magnolia. It's kind of a sarcastic name, I guess, because there are no mountains out here. They added this overpass to go above the railroad tracks beneath, because they used to slow the traffic down on 1488. And so about 3 to 3.5%. And the way it gets there, you know, every climb is different. It's a piece of wood over there. So even before they signal, I saw the wood. That's the way you want to be wherever possible. You want to see what's coming. I'm staying by the white line. It's the cleanest point on this thing. That's why I'm there. And I always use my mirror to make sure I see the main lanes, to know what's coming in the main lane, should I need to venture out there for whatever reason. We just rode this. There were no attacks or anything. And you don't have to go with attacks. If somebody changes stuff, you can decide how you're feeling. If you want to lift the pace to go with them, that's fine. I'm trying to stay close to 90. I like to stay in that range. Let's say 75 to about 90, 95 when I'm sitting in the bunch. Darren pulled off the front right after those guys had pulled off, because he had not been pulling. That's Darren on the left. Darren's been out of town. He's just back, and he's not in the shape he was when he left town. So he's trying to build back up. And that's what you do. You get off the front. See, he's gotten off the front. He's drifting back so he can find a position in the draft. You don't have to pull if it's going to cause you to expend energy. They're telling Robert to stay straight, because we usually go down this overpass and we go to the right. But we're going straight. We're going west today into the city of Magnolia. Paul and I were not there when they discussed the route, but Abby had put a route out on the GroupMe board, and this was one of the suggested routes. So he's telling him that they're going to go straight, because normally we turn right. So we're going to get out of this lane and take the main lane, because this is a right turn lane. So now we're in the main lane going straight. And once we go past the traffic furniture here, we'll get on the shoulder. As for people coming onto this, you can see they've been running through the furniture. They use little rubberized separators there. So Robert is pulling, Austin's on his wheel, and I'm just basically keeping my eye on the quality of the pavement here. You see you got barrels over there. There's a lot of construction that I was not aware of, and when we go further up, maybe about 5 kilometers up, there's even more construction as you approach Magnolia. They're working on their roads as you go into the downtown area. So there are a lot of barrels on the road. So whenever the shoulder is not safe to use, when it's safe, use the main lane. You check for traffic, get in the main lane early. And take the lane so that the other road users know to move around or get behind you. This is a nice wide shoulder, so there's a two-way highway here. I'm letting them know there's a lip. That's why I did my hand like that. Everywhere these bridges meet the road, there's a lip. And so what I'm doing is I'm staying upright because I know this whole area is uncomfortable. I'm gonna hit a really bumpy one right about here, right there. You see the camera shook. Paul hit the same thing. Well, it caused my bottle to move to the left. Right there, it touched my leg, and I just straightened it up because you don't want your bottle to fall. That doesn't happen very often. My bottle cage is pretty strong, but whatever we hit was pretty bumpy. But going over it out of the saddle made a big difference. It never affected my wheels. Those wheels are Campanile Urus and Neutron in the front. They're pretty bomb-proof. You go like almost a year or so before you need to even tweak them. They really hold up very well. That's another rider. That's Matt, I believe. Yeah, that's Matt. I think he's trying to get back in shape. He's been off the bike for a while. So he stays with us as long as he can, and then he'll let us go later in the ride. You know, that's the way you have to do it. Somebody lifted the pace up there, so I just used my high cadence to stay on Austin's wheel. The road's going up a little bit. It says 2%. And when I'm riding, I feel it more than anything. And what I do is I make sure I'm in the appropriate gear because it's a long day. We did almost 6 hours. So I try to save the legs, stress the lungs. My heart rate is right around sweet spot. And like I said, everybody's different. The next guy might be 170 something. The next guy might be 150 or 140 something. Everybody's different. So after we went over that climb, that was Robert forcing the pace on that climb. There's a car behind, I'm letting him know. That's why he moved over. I pointed out that was for him because this shoulder ends and they put a curb here. We're approaching a freeway. Well, it's a tollway. They call it the Aggie Expressway. It goes to College Station to the right, which is north. To the left is south. We're headed west. So as we approach it, this showed up. They just took our shoulder away and put a curb over there. So they're not doing anything that's bike friendly. Just all they're thinking about are cars. So we take the road. It's yellow. I let them know we're going through. So Robert's gonna ask if everybody got through. I tell him, yeah, let's go. Let's keep going. He's backing off. I just go to the left and go around him. I'm ready to take a pull here. Then Austin accelerates. And the reason I'm mentioning this, nothing's wrong with what he's doing, but then 2 hours later, he struggled to where he ended up riding alone. Don't do that. Your goal should always be finish with your group. That's how you get fit. Finish with the group. Then, because once you get dropped, your pace drops. And then your psyche, your morale is affected too. Nobody wants to be dropped. So what he did here does not compute with his current level of fitness. He should have just slipped behind me or slipped behind Paul. Now he's sitting and taking a pull. And in an hour and a half, he's going to be struggling. Don't do that. So you see, I got lower because he's a small guy. You know, I think I even end up, I don't know if I get into drops or something, but I remember getting very low behind him. So I could benefit from I'm getting into drops. Because he's a shorter, smaller rider than I am. Now, Abby, who put the ride together, is going to do something that I have to point out, which he does all the time. He will do it twice on film, but he does it throughout every time he rides. He's going to come around in a little bit, and just from the back, he's going to come around and lift the pace. He won't come around to give Austin a wheel. Austin's already pulling, so we're moving over because of the barrel. Abby will come on the left, lift and come by and leave like a car length right there. He's not going to slip in front of Austin. So now Austin, knowing that he's already working so hard, he waves me up. He's like, I'm not lifting. It takes a lot out of a rider when you do that. You shouldn't have done that. When you do that, you got to give the rider the wheel. Put the wheel right there to where they don't have to accelerate. I don't know if Abby is even aware that he does this stuff, but he does it all the time. And the next one, in about maybe 12 kilometers or so, I will point that out again, something else that he does that does not compute. So it's clear to me that he's not aware that this is not the proper etiquette. Why come up there, lift the pace when someone else is pulling, and then you sit there, but then this guy, you forced him off the front. He couldn't even get on your wheel. Because had Austin lifted his pace, it would have taken a lot out of him. That's what we talk about when we say digging deep. Austin did not want to dig deep. He was already going pretty hard above his head. I don't think he should have been pulling based on how the ride ended up, with him having to let us go, And that's what this channel is about, to show you things that you do so that you can accomplish your goals. Nobody goes to a group ride saying, I want to see how short a period of time I can stay with this group. Your goal is, I want to get with this group, stay with them till the end of the ride. Then the next time, maybe take some short pull, but still finish the ride with them, because that gives you more of an improvement. You do whatever it takes to last, because I don't care how good a sprinter you are. If you're not at the line to sprint and you get dropped, your sprint is useless. I'm using that as an analogy. So he forced Austin to wave me up, but Austin did not want to accelerate. It would have taken a lot out of him. So I had to accelerate and close that gap. Instead of keeping things steady. Steady she goes. You come to the front. If you must do that, slip the wheel right in front of that rider. He or she will appreciate it. Because steady efforts are completely different than surges. That's why surges are used in road racing competition. It snaps the elastic at some point. Not everybody can take all those intervals of increased speed. There's a guy on some kind of I don't know if it's a wheelchair on the side of the highway. Yeah, they built this highway with no access for anybody else. He's got to use the road. There's no other way to get where he's trying to get. But this is a rural community, and we have a lot of this in Texas, where the roads are just built for cars with no accommodation for other, whether it's pedestrians, bicycles, or whatever else. But we have the right to use the road, same as everybody else. Especially the Houston area. Houston as a city was not planned for anything other than automobiles. Because even the Woodlands have hike and bike paths, and so people can get out and walk and do whatever. So right here, Abby's going to tell me that he's going to get off the front, then he's going to tell me that we're turning right on 1486. So what I explained earlier, he tells me here and I nod my head. What I explained earlier, what he did that was not cool is, if you're coming to take a pull, which is that's what he did, do not gap the rider that's pulling. Slip your rear wheel about a foot in front of them so they can just continue the same effort. Don't accelerate like he did to where Austin had to like let him go. Because it was better for Austin to let him go, not have to close a gap. It takes a lot out of you. And then Austin just slipped to the back behind another wheel. And the exact thing that I am explaining here is what I will try to do in a few kilometers later when James and a couple of other guys accelerate away from the bunch. Abby's sitting there. He lets the gap get large. So once the road widens, I'm like, I see him sitting there. The gap is just growing. I go around on the right on that time, and I come to the front, and I give Abby a wheel because I'm ready to pull us to the group ahead. And then what he does is come back around me and accelerate. So I'm thinking, well, if you were going to do that, why did you allow the gap to open in the first place? You'll see it develop. These are the things that drive me nuts. And I'm like, what is it with these guys? That's how you know people are they're not aware. They're just not aware. You know, because what he did made no sense to me. That's not what I was taught, you know. So now you'll see it develop, and I have to explain it so because it probably wouldn't make sense, and I don't want you doing the same thing. You got to have a reason for every time you expend your energy. So right here, knowing that the group has at least a couple of, well, there are 3 riders that are below par in fitness, below their top fitness. So all I'm doing here is keeping it hard but steady. Not very hard, you know. I would say it's sweet spot effort. My heart rate hasn't caught up, but I'm just at the point where this is an effort we do when we ride. We can do that for 4 hours or more, you know. So I'm just keeping it steady. It's a good pull to where they'll get a workout, but they won't get dropped. We're going to be turning. As we turn, there is a grade. You can see it's already saying it's flickering between 1%. We're going to turn as a grade as we turn. This is the FM 1486. We're outside of the downtown Magnolia, Texas. We're going to be heading east towards Dobbins, Texas. So when we turn, the road kicks up. I downshift because I want to keep the effort the same. It's a very narrow shoulder. I'm going to use it. There are no ribbons or, you know, speed bumps in that white line, so I rode it for a bit, but I'm trying to stay next to it. Paul stays on the road, and most of the group will. It's pretty quiet, but I'm gonna ride that because that's, in a little bit, it's gonna get a little wider, but we'll use it because the road, in about maybe a kilometer or so, the road gets busier. And so we don't want to use the main lanes if there is a safe piece of shoulder, which there is. And this is about the size of the shoulder until we get well into Dobbins. It's pretty narrow, but you can use it. I like coming out here. They're nice rollers. You see it says 2%. So you get these nice little grades where you can get a nice tempo. I take the camera from Paul here as he comes through. This is a right turn lane, so it was a good place for us to change the lead. I'm gonna ride up to Austin Wheel because I know Abby likes to sit on the back, so I figure let him sit back there. Abby is retired, so he spends a lot of time on the bike riding, but my thing is he needs to spend a little more time doing some research in cycling etiquette, because I don't think he's aware of what he does and its impact on the other riders in the group. So when you're riding with the group, I'm gonna comment about Austin's cadence and also the guy in front of him, James. If you look at them, they just look labored. Look at them. You shouldn't do that, because in a group ride, the speed is going to change, especially a very, what can I say, spirited group ride. If you're in those kind of gears, you will strain your muscles. You will need more recovery. You got to go down a bit and kind of rev up. It's okay here because the speed is somewhat steady, but whenever you're in a group, you want to use the smallest possible gear to maintain that speed. It allows you to accelerate without arching your back or dipping your shoulders like you're straining, like when you go to the gym and you put too much weight on there, you know, same difference. Because when I'm riding, I shift a lot. I am not shy about shifting. That's why I keep my bike tuned. Because when I shift, I want it to get there instantly. I don't want to wait for it. So Paul pulled off. Paul was not well on this ride, but he rode great. The strategy was minimal effort.
Good job, my brother.
Minimal effort. I mean, he wasn't sick or anything, just low energy from upset stomach over the weekend or before coming up into the weekend. And so we discussed it, and I told him, see how you feel, sit in, you know. He had already been drinking a lot of electrolytes before he came to ride anyway. So he ended up, he rode fine. Didn't seem like anything was there, but he was riding very smart. That's the way you have to ride. Nobody knows how you feel but you. And that can change. One moment you can feel great, and the next moment the body can change. I like this road because even though it has busy traffic, they're not passing you as frequently as in the neighborhood where we live, where every 2 seconds there's a car coming by. I prefer to come out here. So when I get on my bike, I get out of my neighborhood. I don't ride around my neighborhood. There's too much to deal with. Every time Dick and Harry going somewhere. So it's just highly populated. So I get out of town. So at this point, I go ahead and stand. It just felt good. It's about 3% minor grade. I keep my cadence 65-ish to 70. Right now it says 78, 79. But it's a gear that I can accelerate in. She did change the pace without having to do anything. The road ends there, so we have to come over. You know, they just ended the pavement. That was probably after they did the improvement for the Aggie Expressway back there. So when you're riding alone on roads like these, since I've gotten a mirror, I don't need to look behind that much, but you can always look under your armpit or turn your head a little bit. Keep your eye on, or use your ears. I don't put things in my ears. I need to hear what's going on around me. Not only when I'm on the bike. If I'm out walking around, I don't want to be on the phone walking around. I see that a lot. You probably see it in your area too. People out for a walk, having a heated conversation on their phone, and they're holding the phone to their ear and all that. I'm like, you're missing out on why you're out there. I want to experience what I'm out there doing. If I got a serious conversation to have, I'm going to do it at home and then go for my walk or whatever. If you're just out on a leisurely walk, I mean. But sometimes they're having these animated conversations, then they lose track of what else is going on around them. I mean, I see people crossing at the crosswalk looking at their phones. So how do you know if somebody messes up and doesn't see you and might hit you with their car? So, you know, you got to be aware. So you can see whatever gear I'm in, when the speed changes, I don't have to do anything that drastic to respond to it. That's the whole point of making sure you're holding pace, because if you're constantly having to strain in some heavy gear or over rev in a gear that's too low, you upset your rhythm. And that can wear you out, because that means you're not efficient. It's the same thing, those of you who are into cars. They used to tell us when we go to the professional driving school, do not upset the car when you come to a corner. Meaning, don't just drastically toss the car to where you're going to lose control. Everything needs to be smooth and gradual. It's very similar in that regard. You want to keep your rhythm in the same range as much as possible. Whatever you're comfortable with. That's the reason why we train to tolerate higher cadences, because there are times when you need to accelerate. It's hard to accelerate in a very large gear because you don't have the explosiveness, usually, depending on what speed you're coming from. It takes a while to get that momentum going. So you got to be able to snap a gear and then shift up and continue to rev the next gear you've shifted to. That's why having the ability to spin the high cadence is really very, very good as far as a part of your arsenal. It helps you respond, it helps you chase up to a group, it helps you start a breakaway and still have plenty left in your muscles, because you're not using maximal load per se all the time. Somebody has twisted the screw up there. The pace went up a little bit. See Austin rocking his shoulder in front of me? He's looking for power. He's probably in too large a gear because he's not comfortable with the smaller gear and having to rev it up. And that's what he's doing. Look at his shoulders rocking. Yeah, everybody does have a different style, but what I want to point out is that I've ridden with Austin when he was much fitter. He never did that. So he's trying to compensate for being out of shape by pushing a bigger gear. And really, it's easier to get in shape by using a higher cadence. The less painful way to get in shape. It taxes your aerobic system, but it won't tear up your legs to where you need a longer recovery time. I'm not sure if Darren was pulling or not. Darren's one of the guys who I talked about that hadn't been riding his regular schedule, been traveling. The nice thing about being fit is that after we did this stretch here, I could not believe that we had already gone through this stretch, because I remember many years ago when we newly moved to the area, we used to come out on this side of town. This stretch was a big hurdle, and I told Paul about it. After we got through this area, we're riding together. I told him, I said, I couldn't believe that we had gotten to Jackson Road when we did. I said, what happened to all those hills? And we laughed about it. Because this is what, 1%, but it goes on for a while. And I think it might kick up a little bit. Abby's going to the front again to change the pace. I don't know, but that's another thing. And anyway, But the thing is that take from this the fact that just because somebody rides a lot does not mean they understand the nuances of the sport. So there are a lot of strong riders have no idea what the etiquette or the norms are. They're just strong. You know, on Sunday I rode with Mo. Mo came out on the ride and we rode the Taka Corner, and he was telling me that they have a Wednesday ride where we're talking about people watching TV, watching cycling on TV, and then bring it to the group ride. He said they were riding, and there was a guy in front of him pulling really well, good pace, and some guy from the back just came up on the left and zigzagged in front of the guy and freaked the guy out. You know what I mean? Like they do in the pro races where they're trying to establish a breakaway. They're jumping from the left and going to the right, you know, so they're not giving people wheels early. But he said, you know, there was no reason for that guy to do that. If somebody's at the front pulling steadily and you come from the back, nobody's on your wheel. So why are you zigzagging in front of this guy on an open road without closed traffic? It's not a race, although it's a spirited ride. There's a night ride. Mo said he scared the heck out of the guy, freaked him out. You know, so they don't understand why people do those things, and when you do that, you have to be careful. That's why the pros fall a lot. I mentioned that to Mo. I told him, for pros, they should fall a lot. And he said they take a lot of chances. Well, they have a reason to take chances, I guess. It's their job. Maybe they want a contract, whatever. They got their reasons why they take. Plus, they're a bunch of young kids. They don't know better. They're tossing their bodies around. So yeah. So you know, we're out here just trying to enjoy at this stage, enjoy the bike. And so we chatted about that. It was kind of good to hear his perspective on it. He was right on. He said they take a lot of risks. I'm in a larger gear. You see my cadence is down, but I was out of the saddle. Once I sit down, I get in the appropriate gear, but then the speed's off again. This is the thing about group rides. That's why you don't want to kill yourself too much. You need to be able to repeat for hours what you're doing. That's how you pace yourself. So when you train by yourself, train your body to tolerate accelerations if you're going to ride with faster groups, or if you're an ambitious cyclist. And even if you're not an ambitious cyclist, if you're somebody who just wants to go fast, going fast requires snap. Because if you're pulling a huge gear like a diesel, it's not very fast. You just strain your muscles. You get to a certain speed, but it takes you all day to get there. That's not fast. That was Austin saying slowing. Somebody in front of him slowed down, and I'm aware of that. I don't know why he says slowing, but when you're following people, you got to be able to feel that they're slowing down. Somebody lifted the pace again. It's probably Abby sitting up there messing with the pace. I don't know. You know, the thing is that you have to decide what kind of group you are. And quit being a chameleon. If your group in the parking lot is talking about, okay, we got 3 riders are not fit, we're going to keep it steady. If you announce you're going to keep it steady, try to do that. But it's hard. Even on Sunday, we waited for Darren and some other riders. And then we get to the last hill back almost into town on Honia, Egypt. And the guys, we had already decided, I said, if you're going to wait for people, then you got to change the way you're riding. Everybody like, yeah. And as soon as the guy gets back, the first thing he said was, I don't know why you waited for me. You're going to drop me on the hill anyway. There's a last hill before you get into town. And sure enough, they ignored everything we had chatted about when we got to the hill. So I just stayed with him and kept it steady so he wouldn't ride by himself. You know, but it's like, decide what your group is going to do and try to stick with it as much as possible. If a few people want to go faster, let them go, but keep the group together, because you announced a certain thing, a certain characteristic that attracted riders to show up. And that needs to be the main focus, because that's what attracted certain riders. Okay, this is going to be a steady ride. Oh, this is a Sunday easier ride. That's the main thing. people who want to go faster, let them form the little breakaway, and you guys can regroup at the store. And that's what we did on Sunday. People fell off, and they were like, they wanted to stop around some highway. I said, nah, let's just regroup at Taco Corner. I don't believe in messing with people's fun. I think it's nice to not have too many rules. This is a leisure activity. As long as they're being safe, it's fine. But the things I point out just they're not logical. And that's why I point them out. Like the stuff you're going to see in about probably 2 kilometers. We're on 1486. We've passed Jackson Road, which when we got there, I didn't believe we were already there. I was looking for steeper climbs before we got there. Because 3 or 4 years ago, they used to seem very steep. Not anymore. That's another reason I went back to my 3953. As I've gotten fitter and gotten more accustomed to these climbs, I didn't need it. I hadn't put them on for this area. I put them on for Chapel Hill, but we don't go there that often. And it's really not that bad out there. They got a few steep areas. So as you get stronger, you have to reassess your gearing. As you go to different parts of your areas to ride, you have to reassess the gearing for the areas you're going to go ride in. Maybe have one bike set up for steeper areas, and if you have multiple bikes, or just change a wheel on your current bike and put something with a wider range. I hate to be over geared. So we're on 1486. We've passed Jackson. We're headed towards Dobbins, Texas. And I don't know if it's here. I think it's here. We're going to see people accelerate. Let's see here. Where are we? I don't think we've reached Jackson. I thought we had passed Jackson Road. We may be approaching Jackson Road because we took the long way on 1486 from 1774 in Magnolia. This is a long stretch. Yeah, we have not reached Jackson Road. I knew there were no cars. I did look behind to confirm the second time, reconfirm, to avoid that gravel. Because you don't know what else is in there. If you can't get on the road like I did, stand. Whenever there's a doubt, take the weight off that rear wheel. That's why most flats are on the rear. So the weight on it when you go through obstacles. Yeah, we're approaching Jackson. And this is one of the climbs that used to beat the crap out of us. It says 1 or 2%. But after riding that whole stretch, when we'd come back, it just seemed, because, you know, I used to be a flatlander many years ago. Used to live in Southwest Houston. As flat as a pancake. It's all farm country. Yeah, this is the last climb before Jackson. It's a nice stretch. This is the one I was telling Paul. I didn't even realize we had gone over it. I stay in the same gear and I push and then I back off, and I have to tell them car back. Because of that gravel we just went through, they were getting on the road, and I'm sure they weren't looking behind. Riders have a tendency to take a little more of a chance when they're in a group. You shouldn't do that. So I was expecting more climbing when we got to this point. In addition to what you can see going to the left, that curve is a slight grade. But I expected something more than that. And when it didn't come, I was like, man, we're already at Jackson Road. But I've been riding like 900 meters, 700 meters on most of my rides. I just head out. So it leveled off here. I'm not sure if this whole area is rolling, but I don't know if we get anything significant until maybe after Jackson. I think it will descend. It's kind of a false flat. 3 or 4 years ago, I'd come through here and feel like my eyes were crossed. Especially with the WCC guys. My heart rate would be like 175 or something like that. So yeah, we're at Jackson because Abby pulled off. He was at the front. So he pulled off. So now I believe that because of how Abby rides, that's Jackson Road we just passed. Because of how Abby rides, I believe this is why, well, I don't know if the only reason James and them did it, but you will see there will be people jumping out of the line and changing the pace, which is, it's okay, but it was like, okay, we've got 3 guys here that are barely hanging on. So what's the plan? Has the plan changed? We weren't in the parking lot when they chatted about it. So Abby's going around somebody, and that's Mike Weingrad in the white jersey, and then James is going. James is like a flash in the pan. He'll go for 10 meters and sit up. So when he goes, I don't bother. There's no point to it. Yeah, I shook my head. That's what Paul's laughing. I'm like, what are they doing? So now we have a gap up there. Okay, I can see it. The camera does not show it very well. We have 2 or 3 riders up there because I believe even Robert LaPlante went with them. That's James way up there. That's what I mean. He went about 10 meters. Now he's sitting up in the middle of the highway looking behind. What are you looking behind for? You made your move. Keep it going. So now Abby is sitting in front of our little group here. Matt, who's one of the guys who is not in top shape, is on Abby's wheel. So now I assume that Abby's trying to just keep the group together here. This is my assumption from a logical perspective. Let's put it that way. So I'm thinking, okay, he's just going to stay here, and he doesn't want to ride up to those guys. They're not that far up the road. They might be maybe 150 meters up the road. So I know that this shoulder gets wider after that curve. And since the gap is continuing to grow and I'm feeling fine, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling strong, I had a good training week, I figure, okay, I'm going to go to the front and I'm going to give Abby a wheel and just pull all of us back to the guys up there without lifting the pace too much, but to where these guys will still be able to hang on. Because Abby's just holding the same, we're doing about 24 miles an hour, and those guys are pulling away. But those guys really are not that far ahead because we get there real quickly. So that's my plan. Right here, the road gets wider, so I move up. Watch. I'm going to give Abby my wheel. This is not an attack. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is how you take the lead. I slip right in front of him. I look back. Then he comes and he passes me. Watch this. So if you could do that, why the heck did you let the gap open? So I go ahead and accelerate now, and so now I go ahead and accelerate. I say, okay, I'm sitting up here. I look back, I see Paul, and I can catch those guys by myself. But you know, so I'm doing 400, 500 watts. Well, I know those guys are gonna have problems. So maybe about 15 to 20 strokes were already on their wheel. They weren't that far. They went up and did that, then sat up. And so I'm like, okay, this is the stuff that drives me nuts when people are doing things that just does not compute with my understanding. Even if you're a runner or a swimmer or whatever it is you do, you know what I'm talking about. There's certain kinds of expectations or things that make sense. That didn't make sense because if you were going to do that, you shouldn't have let them get that lead. You should have just, because he accelerated back there, moved over just like James is up there. Now look at this. He's pulled out of the line, drifting back to the back. So why did you come around me? I didn't need you to bring me up here, because if you could come up there, you should have just done that. I would have just stayed back there. That's what I mean when I said they don't understand what they're doing. James, who started it, now he slipped to the back. So what I decided to do was, when these guys are done, no one gets a break. This is in my head right here. I'm bringing you into my head. This is what I'm thinking about. Because as I said before, when I train during the week, I work a lot harder than I do in these rides. So I'm just sitting and waiting. So I've decided that since they started it, we're gonna keep this pace. I'm about less than a foot off of Mike Winegrass's wheel. I'm on him. And he's hard to follow because he's always standing. He drifts left and right. He's hard to follow. He's not the smoothest rider. I move to the right so I can see around them. There's not much of a shoulder here. We're approaching Mount Magnolia. We're gonna make a left turn when it's safe. And there's gonna be a car coming. Now look at them back there. Look at the gaps. They did all of that to sit back there with those huge gaps. That's what I mean. And now we've lost Matt. And I think Darren is back there also. But then they'll go stand somewhere to wait for those very people that they didn't need to lose had you just kept the pace steady and consistent. So there's a car coming. I let Robert know because he's the first trying to turn. So now it's clear. Now there's going to be a car coming the other way. We're going to call it for the guys behind us because it's safe for us, but not for them, that red car. So they can know. So I check my mirror. I see everybody made it. They want to take a break here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit up briefly so Paul can get on my wheel. Right here, I'm going to sit up. And then just resume. And this road is ninja grade. It curves to the right. You got to work on this road. So I just resume. I don't know what gear I'm in. I might be in a 5319 or something like that.
There is a bug behind you. I'm going to get it, okay?
There's a bug on my jersey. So Paul tells me about it.
Hitching a ride. Yeah.
I told him the bug was hitching a ride. I like the white in the sun whenever possible. You know, they have the cold black technology now. But I've fallen in love with these Ossos jerseys. They fit the body so tight. I really like it. You like you forget you're wearing anything. I figure I keep the watts around 250 or so. It's a good work zone. Paul must have hit one of those cracks or something. The pavement's cracking. They've been patching them. Now look behind. He's gonna tell me, look behind, my brother. I just keep riding.
Look back, my brother.
I'm not going that hard. I'm right at sweet spot to the bottom of Zone 4. They want to play, they're gonna have to work to come up to us because this road, you can't cheat. It's at least 1 to 2% most of the time. I like to come out here because you see all the shade on the road. You've got some protection from the sun. Same thing with Spring Branch Road. Very shaded with all the trees. I keep my effort the same. Heart rate 168, 169. Middle of Zone 4. So what I commentate about on here is that the fact that a lot of things they do, they're not logical. I can do this all day long. Bottom of Zone 4, that's where Paul and I ride. Sweet spot, bottom of Zone 4 for our long ride. So I'm not concerned about it. And if somebody does come around and lift the pace, I can go faster. So you have to train enough to where you know what you can sustain. There's no point in doing an attack and going for 10 meters and then sitting up. Why did you even bother attacking? You're not going to drop anybody like that. You got to go. You got to attack for like 30 seconds to 45 seconds, then sit down and work it for 2 to 5 minutes. Now we're talking. That's for you ambitious folks out there. That's how we used to train.
Car ride?
Car ride. I let them know I'm stopping, basically. That's Mike Winegrass break. Made noise the whole weekend. Even on Sunday, it was making noise. It needs to clean it and replace the pads if they're contaminated. So I think it clears up enough for us to go across. This is Highway 105. We're west of Montgomery.
Keep rolling, my brother.
So he said, keep rolling, so I just keep riding. Because somebody was asking if we're going to stop at that store. And then Abby said, no, we're stopping in Dacus. Or Dacus, depending on how you pronounce it. D-A-C-U-S. I think it's more Dacus than Day. This is where those cleats felt loose on the left. I've since sorted that out. So when we got to the store, I tightened them. I always carry my little multi-tool with me. Whenever I put new cleats on and I'm not 100% sure, I keep them just a little loose so they can kind of, give my foot a little bit. The cleats I use have a little bit of play. They're the blue Shimano cleats. I want my legs to do what they want to do without restrictions. This is what we call keeping them honest. If you have the fitness and you have the legs and people are jumping around, accelerating, whatever, in whatever group you're with, and you're feeling like playing, when they're done, raise it up or keep it going. Let's see what kind of fitness they really have. Don't just rest when they want to rest. Let them be aware that whatever they do, there may be repercussions, because there are other people here that may decide to keep it up or keep it going. That forces them to think. So the watts are kind of low. I mean, I'm not going that hard, but this road is flat, and I'm just rolling similar effort, a little bit low sweet spot, kind of like a tempo range here. In a little bit, I'm gonna give Paul the lead. He'll hand me the camera, and then in about a kilometer or so, the camera tells us, beep, 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 battery's out.
There you go.
We try to do no more than maybe 60 minutes or so of footage, because otherwise it would just be too much to edit.
As long as it's not more than too many more times like that. Who's the arbiter 2 minutes? How you going, buddy?
That's a Mike. Mike coming by. So Mike's on the right, and he has discs, but his are the only one making noises. There are quite a few other riders. The guy on the left has discs. James has them. Darren has discs. So it's like when you start getting those noises, you need to look at what did you get in there? Is it just dirt, or did you clean your bike and spray some kind of wax or something on that got on the pads? And then a lot of times you may have to replace the pads, or at least shave them down or something, get that surface off. Maybe it's glazed or something. Because the noise says that you're losing your braking performance. You shouldn't be making noises. So he'll have to sort that out. But anyway, hope you got a chance to get your Ks in. This is what we did. Part of what we did on Saturday. Remember, get your Ks in and keep the doctors fired.